My name is Oliver Harris. I'm 33 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon, a city where the rain feels like a soft whisper, and the Willamette River moves as calmly as if it's never known chaos. From the outside, my life might look like a picture of quiet success. I'm an architect at a respected urban design firm, married to Audrey, a brilliant psychologist whose laughter can chase away any storm, and we have a 5-year-old son, Nathan, whose curiosity could outshine the sun. We live in a wooden house by the river, a place of glass and light, where mornings begin with the smell of coffee and the sound of my wife and son laughing in the kitchen. Some mornings, I just stand there, coffee cup in hand, watching them, thinking I'm the luckiest man alive, but I've learned that every perfect picture has shadows, places you don't want to look too closely. My shadow begins with my family, or rather, with my father. Leonard Harris is a name that carries weight in Portland's real estate world. At 65, he still runs Harris Capital with an iron will and a spotless reputation. To the world, he's a visionary, a gentleman of class and control. To me, he's a cold stone wall, a man who measures love in achievements, who speaks in compliments that sound like criticism. I grew up chasing his approval and never once catching it. When I was 25, I won my first design award, a big deal for a young architect. I remember showing him the certificate, my heart swelling with pride. He glanced at it once and said, "Good job, Oliver. But working for someone else is still working for someone else." Those words carved deep scars. To him, I was just an employee, not an heir, not a successor, not worthy of the empire he'd built. He wanted me to run his company someday, but I couldn't. I didn't want his world of sharp suits, empty smiles, and numbers that meant more than people. I wanted to create, to build spaces that made people feel at home. My mother, Eleanor, was the opposite of everything he stood for. At 62, she was still full of warmth, her hands always busy painting or tending to her garden. She had been an art teacher once, the kind of person who saw beauty in every small thing. Where my father's words could wound, hers always healed. Every weekend, Audrey, Nathan, and I would visit my parents. Mom would take Nathan into the backyard, teaching him how to plant daisies while I fixed things around the house. She'd always say, "You're my pride, Oliver. You chose your own way, and that's braver than following someone else's dream." She was the glue that held our fractured family together, the bridge between my father's coldness and my stubbornness. Whenever we clashed, she'd quietly hand me a cup of tea and tell stories about her students, about art, about finding light in darkness. She never told me to forgive my father, just to try and understand him. I tried. I really did. But some walls can't be broken, no matter how gently you knock. Life continued in that fragile balance, light and shadow, laughter and silence. Then one morning, that balance shattered forever. I was at the office, leading a meeting about a new eco-urban project. We were discussing a design for a park when my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar. I almost ignored it, but something, a strange, heavy feeling, made me step out into the hall and answer, "Hello, is this Mr. Oliver Harris?" The voice was soft, trembling. "I'm a nurse from Portland General Hospital. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but your mother, Mrs. Eleanor Harris, passed away this morning. She suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. We did everything we could, but the world went silent." I didn't hear the rest. It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I stammered something, I don't even know what. My throat was dry. My head buzzed. "No," I whispered. "No, you must be mistaken. My mother was fine, she was fine yesterday." But the nurse's voice broke through, gentle and final. I'm so sorry. Can you come to the hospital, sir? When I hung up, my hands were shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. The corridor tilted around me. My heart wouldn't slow down. I don't remember how I got out of the office or into my car. All I remember is the rain, soft at first, then pounding, streaking across the windshield as I drove to the hospital, the city around me dissolving into grey blurs. By the time I arrived, my father was already there. Leonard Harris, immaculate as ever, wearing a grey suit, as if he'd come from a business meeting instead of the emergency room where his wife had just died. He stood talking calmly to a doctor, his voice low and steady. "Dad," I choked out. "What happened?" He turned toward me, face composed. "Your mother had a heart attack. It was quick. There was nothing anyone could do. No tremor, no grief, nothing but those cold, steady eyes." The doctor confirmed his words, explaining that her heart had simply stopped. "It was sudden," he said. "She didn't suffer." But something inside me screamed that this wasn't right. My mother was healthy, no heart problems, no warning signs. Just 3 days ago, she'd been laughing with Nathan in the garden. How could she be gone, when the nurse handed me a small bag of her belongings, her wallet, her pearl earrings, her daisy-embroidered handkerchief? I clutched them like lifelines. My father walked away mid-conversation, already making calls. He didn't even look back. I wanted to shout, to ask him how he could be so calm, but my voice wouldn't come. The funeral came 3 days later under a sky heavy with rain. I planned everything, the flowers, the music, the eulogies. My father didn't even attend. He said he had important paperwork to handle. People whispered about it behind my back, but I kept my head down, remembering what my mother had taught me, dignity even in pain. When her coffin was lowered into the ground, I broke. I cried harder than I ever had in my life. Audrey held me. Nathan, too young to understand, tugged at my sleeve and asked, "Daddy, when is Grandma coming back?" I told him softly, "She's gone to plant daisies in heaven." That night, when the house was quiet and my family asleep, I sat alone with my mother's things. The faint scent of her perfume clung to the handkerchief. I missed her so deeply it hurt to breathe. Out of habit, I scrolled through my phone and stopped cold. On my father's social media, a photo had just been posted. Leonard Harris, smiling on a balcony beside a much younger woman, both holding wine glasses. The caption read, "A new chapter begins." My blood ran cold. My mother hadn't even been gone a full day. My stomach twisted with anger, confusion, disgust. What kind of man celebrates while his wife's grave is still fresh? I stared at their wedding photo on my shelf, the one where he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world. I whispered, "Mom, what happened? What did he do to you?" And then, as if the universe answered, my phone buzzed again. A message flashed across the screen, from Mom's number. "I'm not dead. Come to my grave now." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My pulse thundered. Was it a mistake? A cruel joke? My mother's number had been disconnected. My heart said no, it wasn't random. It was a sign. Without thinking, I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on my raincoat, and rushed out into the storm. Audrey and Nathan slept peacefully upstairs, unaware that everything was about to change. As my car tore down the wet, empty road toward the cemetery, one thought burned in my mind. If my mother had reached out from beyond the grave, then something about her death was very, very wrong. Rain hammered against my windshield as I drove through the deserted streets toward Rosehill Cemetery. The wiper squeaked, struggling to keep up. Every rational part of my mind told me this was madness, that grief was playing tricks on me. But grief can't send text messages. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes fixed on the road ahead. When I reached the gates, the rain had turned into a fine mist, the kind that makes everything shimmer under the moonlight. The iron gates creaked open just enough for me to slip through. My shoes sank into the wet earth as I followed the narrow path toward my mother's grave. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, landing on her headstone, Eleanor Grace Harris, 1963 to 2025. Beloved mother, artist, and light of our lives, the fresh soil looked untouched. No footprints, no disturbance, just the quiet hum of rain on stone. I stood there for a long time, waiting. My breath came out in shallow clouds. Mom. My voice cracked in the stillness. If this is you, please, give me something. Nothing but the wind. I closed my eyes, clutching the phone in my pocket. The message still glowed on the screen. I'm not dead. Come to my grave now. I almost laughed at myself. Maybe someone hacked her account, or maybe I'd lost my mind entirely. But then something glinted near the base of the headstone, a faint reflection of light. I crouched down, brushing the soil aside, and found a small metal locket. My mother's locket. I'd buried it with her. My heart lurched. Inside the locket was a tiny folded paper, smeared from the damp, but still legible. It read, in her familiar cursive. If you're reading this, I couldn't tell you while I was alive. Your father isn't who you think he is. Look in the studio. The world seemed to tilt around me. The studio, her art studio behind the house. I stumbled back, clutching the locket like a relic, and round to my car. By the time I reached my parents' home, dawn was breaking through the clouds. The house was silent, the air heavy with the scent of lilies from the funeral. My father's car wasn't there, thank God. I unlocked the door with my old key and stepped inside. Her studio was just as she'd left it, easels leaning against the wall, half-finished paintings of flowers and rivers. The place smelled like turpentine and lavender. I turned on the light, and froze. The floorboards near her work table had been pried up and nailed back poorly. Someone had been hiding something. My pulse quickened. I grabbed a screwdriver from the drawer and knelt down, prying the boards loose. Beneath them was a small metal box. Inside lay a stack of photographs and letters, hundreds of them. Most were old, yellowed with time. I flipped through them, and my stomach dropped. Photos of my father with another woman. Not recent, these were from years ago. In some, they looked like lovers. In others, they were with a little girl. My hands trembled as I looked closer. The girl had my father's eyes. I found a birth certificate among the letters. Lydia Hart, born 1997. Father, Leonard Harris. Mother, Clara Hart. My heart felt like it had been ripped open. For nearly 3 decades, my father had lived a double life, another family, another child. My mother had known. She'd kept the truth hidden all these years. One letter was addressed to me, written in her familiar, looping handwriting. My dearest Oliver, if you found this, it means I'm gone, and that I couldn't protect you from the truth any longer. Your father betrayed us long ago. I stayed because I loved you more than I hated him. But lately, I've feared he's gone too far. I discovered things, transactions, documents, that suggest he's been moving money illegally, covering debts through shell companies. I wanted to confront him, but he's changed, Oliver. There's darkness in him now. If anything happens to me, it won't be natural. Trust your instincts, my son. Seek the truth. Don't let his empire bury you. My vision blurred. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. Everything she'd written, it fit. Her sudden death, his absence, his calmness. I snapped photos of everything, the letters, the documents, the photos, and sent copies to my email. Then, as I replaced the box, I heard the front door creak open, footsteps. Slow, heavy, Oliver. My father's voice carried through the hallway, calm and deliberate. What are you doing here, son? I froze. He walked into the studio, his tailored suit spotless despite the storm outside. His eyes flicked to the open floorboards. His expression hardened. You shouldn't have come here. I found Mom's letters, I said, my voice trembling but steady. I know about Lydia. About the money. About everything. For a brief second, something flickered across his face, guilt, maybe fear, before it vanished behind that familiar mask of composure. Your mother was ill, he said evenly. She imagined things. I didn't want to tell you. It would have hurt you more. She wasn't imagining anything. I shouted. You killed her, didn't you? His silence was answer enough. Then, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're emotional. You don't know what you're saying. Put those things back and forget what you saw. I can make you very rich, Oliver. You and your family could live comfortably for the rest of your lives. I took a step back, shaking my head. No amount of money can buy back what you took from her. His jaw tightened. You sound just like her. Before I could move, he lunged toward me. We struggled, the box clattering to the floor, letters scattering like frightened birds. He was stronger than I remembered, his grip iron tight. I managed to shove him back into the table, sending paint jars crashing. As he reached for something, a sharp palette knife, I bolted out the door, clutching my phone. I ran to the car, heart pounding, and called the police. By the time they arrived, he was gone. The studio was in shambles, the evidence scattered, but not gone. I handed them the photos, the documents, everything. The investigation took weeks. It turned out my mother had been right. My father had embezzled millions, using fraudulent accounts under false names. They never proved murder, but the autopsy revealed traces of a rare sedative in her system, one prescribed under his name. The case was enough to destroy his empire. Leonard Harris fled the country before sentencing. He hasn't been seen since. Months passed before the world felt quiet again. Audrey and I moved to the coast, far from the noise of Portland. Nathan started school, his laughter filling the house again. Sometimes I catch him in the garden, planting daisies just like my mother did. One evening, as the sun set over the ocean, I took out her locket, the same one that started it all. Inside, her picture smiled softly back at me. I whispered, I found the truth, Mom. You were right. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. I realized then that truth, however painful, is the only way to honor the people we love. Secrets rot in the dark. They eat away at what's good in us. My mother's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a lesson.